continuing talking about the creation of video games, I want to talk exactly about that. And I believe, it is safe for me to say that, the mainstream media perhaps, bends the story a little when it comes to, the first ever video game.
Hmm.
And they bend it rightfully so, I believe.
Yeah.
But I want to set the record straight since I'm talking to you here.
Yeah.
So, what was the first ever
Yeah.
video game?
I have an answer, but it never satisfies people. And like you
Hmm.
say, rightly so, because there are games before the example I'm going to give you, that people had made something approaching a video game. But on my site, what I refer to as the first video game, with all the different caveats that is involved with, the first
Absolutely, yeah.
video game I consider is Tennis for Two, which is a game that a nuclear physicist made in
Yes.
1958, right? Named William Higginbotham. And the reason why I consider that the first video game is it had the appearance of something that became a video game later, right? It was sort of a very early version of Pong, right? It was like
Right.
it was done on an oscilloscope. There was a line on the bottom, and then there was a little line going up as the net, and you just shot a ball back and forth, and it would bounce. It had
Yeah.
really amazing physics modeling for this 1958 video game on an analog computer, right?
Absolutely.
But it was like a
Absolutely.
tennis game. It took a sports metaphor and abstracted it as onto a screen that you played, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is a video game like I said, Pong wasn't the first video game, but it was the video game that invented the industry. Everybody
Got it. Yeah.
ran and started making Pong games. Atari and Nolan Bushnell were the inventors of Pong, but they only sold a fraction of the Pong games that were sold because everybody come rushing in. That's another thing you always see about video games after, is that something gets really popular and everybody else makes the same thing, right? And that's not just video games. You see movies where they come up with some topic, and then there's like five movies all that come up at the same time, all around that same topic, right?
Right.
But
Absolutely.
so Tennis for Two by William Higginbotham is what I consider the first video game, just because it looked like it's something recognizable as a video game,
Right.
right?
Is what we can recognize as a video game of today.
Yeah.
Correct. Am I correct in understanding that there's a slight connection between the J. Robert Oppenheimer and the creator of Tennis for Two, right?
There is. I saw Oppenheimer. I don't know if you saw it in the theater too, and I was kind of
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I was disappointed that they didn't. There wasn't a character named William Higginbotham there. I thought maybe they
Right.
maybe throw him in, but William Higginbotham actually developed the timing circuits for the atomic bomb. Essentially,
That
the
is
trigger for
absolutely
it.
crazy.
Yeah,
Right.
essentially the trigger for it. He was there that day at with the Trinity test where they exploded the first nuclear bomb, and then he was
Yeah.
forever changed by that, and he founded the Society of Atomic Physicists, I think is the name of the organization. I might be getting that wrong, but it's pretty much a group of scientists that are trying to get us to keep in mind about what we've created, right? And the dangers of it, and how it can be spiraled out of control, right? And so he was forever impacted witnessing the biggest explosion that humans had ever seen, and he just sort of worked at regulating that for the rest of his life.
Right. Right. Now that is absolutely, such a crazy connection that,
Yeah.
the first thing, what we can call a video game, actually has some sort of a connection to the
Yeah.
creation of the atomic bomb.
Yeah. What else is funny
That's
too is
wonderful.
a neat connection is, so William Higginbotham, as well as being involved in the first atomic bomb, is he also was installed at MIT to create radar systems that they can mount in planes. They're reducing radar to a point where you can install it in the plane, and as the pilot's going, he can use the radar to see what's around him, right? And so he was involved in that. And what's funny is, what I would consider really the second video game created was Space War, which was developed at MIT by a group of people from the like artificial intelligence lab and the computer labs and all that. They Steve Russell is the first guy. He's the main designer of the game, and Space War again is it looks like something we you look at it right away, you think video game, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
No, 100%.
yeah, and it was maybe the first game, well, that sort of it got popular and it got spread around, right? At the
Right.
time, I think there was probably a prototypical internet between all these universities, so it was the first game that kind of got spread around and like everyone wanted to play it. And they ended up at computer labs. They would ban Space War because everyone would just go in and be playing games
Yeah,
all
right.
night, and they look at the usage of the computer and they go, "What the hell? What is this
Yeah,
thing
right.
eating up like 96% of the computer cycles?" I was like,
That
everyone's
is
playing Space
absolutely,
War.
yeah.
Yeah,
That is absolutely crazy, and it's really
yeah,
interesting, these intricate connections between, the early games, and some of the world's most brilliant minds actually
yeah,
started the whole video game industry, you could say,
yeah.
right?
It's just like
Correct me if
David
I'm wrong.
Crane
Yeah,
said, right? You have computers, and people going to do with computers? They're going to make games,
right.
right? Because what have we been doing that
Exactly.
for as long as humans have been around? We've been making games.